Chapter 1. Orders into the Unknown. The Mission That Made No Sense. The year was 1994. Somewhere in the dense forests bordering Eastern Europe, a small military unit received sudden orders that left them unsettled. These were not rookie soldiers. They were seasoned men, trained to follow commands without hesitation. But this mission briefing was different. The orders came sealed, with higher-level clearance than anyone in the squad was used to. Even their commanding officer admitted he had never seen directives like these. They were told to move into an area that was off the official maps, a zone marked as uninhabited and restricted. Yet strangely, their mission sheet mentioned things no military document should. Observe without engagement. Record any anomalies. Do not under any circumstances attempt direct contact. The men exchanged nervous glances. Anomalies? Contact? This wasn't the language of combat. It sounded like something out of a science experiment. The captain tried to steady his voice as he explained the briefing, but even he couldn't hide his unease. Rumors spread quickly among the unit. Some soldiers whispered that maybe they were being sent into an old Cold War weapons site, a place where dangerous experiments had taken place. Others thought it was a test, an exercise in psychological warfare to see how they'd react under strange conditions. But the strangest part of all, when one of the sergeants quietly checked the coordinates on his personal field map, he realized something chilling. The place didn't exist. The spot they were being ordered to march into was nothing but a blank patch of forest land, unmarked, unexplained. Still, orders were orders. At dawn, the men packed their gear, their radios, and their weapons, and prepared to march into a mission that made no sense at all. And in the silence before they left, one soldier muttered what all of them were secretly thinking. Whatever's out there, it isn't in our training manuals. Chapter 2. The Road to Nowhere. Strange signs along the path. The forest swallowed them whole. At first, the march was routine. Steady boots on dirt, the crunch of leaves, the weight of their packs pressing into their shoulders. But within an hour, the soldiers began to sense something off. The terrain didn't behave the way it should have. Their compass needles wavered, twitching like they were caught between two invisible magnets. The map the sergeant carried didn't help either. Landmarks that should have been there, a river bend, a ridge, a small village, were nowhere to be found. In their place stretched endless trees, silent and looming, as if the forest itself had rearranged to keep them lost. Then came the first sign. Private Morales noticed it. A wooden post driven into the ground, rough and splintered with strange carvings etched along its length. The marks didn't look like words, but patterns, spirals that seemed to twist if you stared too long. No one admitted it out loud, but the symbols felt wrong, like they were meant to warn them away. Further along, they stumbled upon something else, an abandoned campsite. The fire pit was cold, but the ashes were fresh enough to smear on a fingertip. Empty ration tins lay scattered, American issue, yet no unit had been reported in this sector. Even more unsettling, the soldiers found gear, a helmet with its strap broken, a torn sleeve of a uniform, the insignia ripped clean off. Whoever had been here had vanished in a hurry. The radio operator, Jenkins, tried to raise command to report the discovery. Static. No matter how he adjusted the frequency, all he got was a low hum, like a faint whisper buried in the signal. The harder he listened, the more it sounded like words. Not English, not any language he knew. The men pressed forward, tension thickening with every step. By late afternoon, they reached a clearing, and there it stood. A road. But not a road anyone had seen before. It was narrow, paved with cracked stones, the kind of path that belonged to centuries past, not the modern world. Moss crept over it, as though nature itself had tried to erase it, yet the stones stretched straight ahead, leading deeper into the unknown. The captain hesitated. He could order them back, try to retrace their steps, but the orders were clear. Advance. Record. Do not turn back. So, the squad stepped onto the road that no map acknowledged. And as they did, the forest seemed to grow quieter. No birds, no wind, not even the rustle of leaves. Only silence, and the feeling that something unseen was already watching them. Chapter 3. Whispers in the wind. Soldiers hear what shouldn't be heard. The further they followed the stone road, the heavier the air became. The forest seemed to lean inward, trees arching over them like a tunnel, shutting out the sun. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and the silence pressed on their ears until every breath sounded too loud. That was when the whispers began. At first, the soldiers thought it was just the wind, a soft rustling, a faint hiss threading through the branches. But the air was still, completely still. No breeze stirred, no leaves trembled. Yet the sound persisted, curling at the edge of hearing, like voices carried from far away. "Did you hear that?" Private Collins muttered, his rifle clutched tight. "Hear what?" Sergeant Kane snapped. Though his eyes darted side to side, Collins didn't answer. He couldn't, because the voice he had heard hadn't been random. It had spoken his name. They pushed on, nerves raw. The radio operator Jenkins kept fiddling with his set, swearing he could hear faint chatter in the static. But when he turned the volume up, the words became clearer. "Too clear. Go back. Not yours. Leave us." The voices layered over one another, some deep and guttural, others shrill and childlike, all whispering through the crackle of the radio like a broken chorus. Jenkins ripped off his headset, pale as death. But the voices didn't stop. They slipped into the trees now, drifting between the trunks, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, always close enough to keep the soldiers' nerves stretched thin. And it wasn't just random words anymore. Some of the men swore the whispers belonged to people they knew. Morales froze mid-step when he heard his mother's voice call to him. Gentle, soothing, the same tone she'd used when he was a child. Private Reynolds swore he heard his dead brother's laugh echoing just out of sight. The road seemed endless, twisting yet never arriving anywhere. And all the while, the whispers grew bolder, louder. The men began snapping at each other, convinced someone was playing tricks, their discipline unraveling one frayed thread at a time. Then, as dusk bled into the trees, the voices stopped, abruptly. The silence was worse than the whispers. And in that silence, they heard something else. Not voices, not wind, but footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Following them. The squad wheeled around, weapons raised, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved. The shadows were too deep, too thick, like a curtain. But the footsteps didn't stop. They were not alone anymore. Chapter 4. The shadowed figure. When the forest revealed its watcher, the squad's nerves were stretched thin, rifles raised, breaths shallow. Every man was listening, trying to match the rhythm of those footsteps with their own heartbeat. But the sound didn't belong to them. It belonged to something else. Step. Pause. Step. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. "Contact!" Sergeant Kane barked, his voice cracking louder than he intended. Flashlights swung through the trees, beams cutting across branches, leaves, and shadows. Nothing. Only forest. But then Morales froze, his light trembling in his hand. "Sir, look." At the edge of the tree line, maybe 30 yards away, something stood. It wasn't quite hidden, but it wasn't clear either. Just enough shape for their minds to recognize it as humanoid. A tall, narrow figure, too still, too silent. Its outline was jagged, like branches twisted together, yet the longer they stared, the more it seemed to shift. "Identify yourself," Kane shouted, his rifle trained. His voice echoed, but the figure didn't move. Didn't even flinch. Collins whispered, "It's watching us." The forest seemed to lean in closer, every sound swallowed up until the soldiers could hear nothing but their own blood rushing in their ears. Jenkins, shaking, raised the radio to call command, but all he got was static, and within that static the whispers returned. Only now they were clearer. They weren't saying "go back" anymore, they were saying, "It's here." The figure stepped forward. Just one step. Branches cracked under its weight, but the movement wasn't natural, more like something imitating the way a human should walk. Its head tilted, impossibly far, as though studying them with eyes none of them could see. The men backed up in unison, their training replaced by instinct. Fingers twitched on triggers, breaths came faster. Sergeant Kane hissed, "Hold your fire!" But his own voice betrayed doubt. Because deep down every man knew whatever stood before them wasn't supposed to exist. The figure stopped. For a moment, silence swallowed the world. Then, without warning, the forest erupted. Not in gunfire, but in sound. The same whispers they'd been hearing now poured from every direction, louder, overlapping, until the words were indistinguishable. The noise was deafening, like being caught inside a storm of voices. When the men looked back toward the tree line, the figure was gone. Only the shadows remained. But the soldiers knew the truth. They hadn't imagined it. And worse, it wasn't. Finished with them. Chapter 5. The Vanishing Point. When the road finally ended, the squad pushed forward, though none of them knew why. Orders had lost all meaning, radios were useless, and every compass needle spun like it was caught in a storm. But something, whether duty, fear, or some unseen pull, kept their boots moving deeper into the trees. The forest seemed endless. No matter how long they marched, the terrain refused to change. Morales muttered, "We've been walking in circles," but when they checked their GPS, the screen showed a straight line, straight into nothing. The deeper they went, the more wrong it felt. The air was thicker, heavy, as though it carried weight. Trees grew taller, closer together. Their trunks warped and stretched like bones instead of bark. A sickly pale glow seeped through the canopy, though no sun or moon was visible above. Then suddenly, the trees ended. The men stumbled to a halt at the edge of an open clearing, jaws tightening as they realized what lay before them. A road. But not just any road. It stretched perfectly straight ahead, cutting through the forest like a scar. Its surface wasn't asphalt or dirt, but something gray, smooth, and cold-looking, as if it had been carved from stone. The road was dead silent, absorbing every sound around it. Even their breathing felt muffled. Collins whispered, "Where does it go?" No one answered. The squad moved cautiously forward, boots clacking against the strange surface. The further they walked, the more they noticed there were no landmarks, no hills, no trees returning, just the road stretching endlessly. Then Morales pointed ahead, squinting. "Sir, do you see that?" Far in the distance, where the horizon should have been empty, something shimmered. At first it looked like heat rising off pavement, but then it began to take shape, arches, towering pillars, and what looked like a massive gate. Its surface pulsed faintly, like it was alive. Every instinct screamed at them to stop, but their legs carried them forward anyway. As they drew closer, the whispers returned, not behind them, not around them, but ahead. This time, the words were clear. "The end is here." Kane ordered a halt, but his voice was swallowed by the hum rising from the gate. The soldiers clutched their weapons, but the rifles felt like toys in their hands, useless against whatever. Force awaited them. And then, just as the squad stepped within yards of the gate, the ground beneath them shifted. Not like an earthquake, no, It was as though reality itself bent inward. The road they stood on rippled like water, the horizon folding in on itself. Collins screamed. Morales dropped to his knees. Kane shouted for formation, but it was too late. The gate yawned open, and the road ended. The squad vanished into the light. And in the forest behind them, silence fell once again, as if they had never been there at all.